Now we're going to go from a ghost on a ship to an actual ghost ship. Let's cast ourselves back to far north Queensland and the stormy night of the 23rd of March 1911. The steamship Yongala is travelling and heading straight into a cyclone, a storm from which it would not reappear. That night the ship was lost with all 121 passengers and crew. Now the ship was a well-found vessel. Its identical sister ship, the Grantalla, had a long career of over 30 years both in Australian waters and in the Mediterranean. So they were well-found vessels. And it was decided that the ship was lost just simply through natural circumstances. Between 1911 and 1923, the story of the Yongala and its fate faded from memory. But for a period of about 24 years, between 1923 and 1947, fishermen in the area where it was believed that the Yongala had been lost started to report that they were seeing the ghostly outline of a vessel that resembled the Yongala. And every time they would pick up speed, try to approach the ship, try to hail it, to identify it, the ship would drift or steam into the mist and disappear. Interestingly, in 1947, the Royal Australian Navy did a survey and they did find a wreck in that spot. And 11 years later, divers went down and positively identified that that wreck was indeed that of the Yongala. Since then, the wreck of the Yongala is consistently one of the top 10 shipwreck dives in the world. It is certainly a remarkable ecosystem, and the photos of the wreck are spectacular. And while we know through archaeology how the wreck has evolved over the last century, we actually still don't know the exact set of circumstances which led to the Yongala sinking with the loss of all on board. One theory is that the funnel was washed overboard, and without steam propulsion, the ship drifted side on, and the waves smashed into the ship and sank it. Another theory is that through constant action of the waves, the forward hatches were worked loose and the ship progressively flooded until it reached the point of no return, and once it smashed into one wave, the Yongala couldn't recover and sank. This is a similar scenario to what happened to the Derbyshire, so it is certainly plausible that this could have been the fate of the Yongala. What is remarkable is that A, after the wreck had been discovered, the ghost disappeared, but also the circumstances that surrounded the loss of the Yongala are not unique. And in fact, we have a trio of almost identical circumstances. So with the Yongala being the first one, our second one that we will look at is the Koombana. Now, this vessel, dimension-wise, in terms of its operations, was almost identical to that of the Yongala. And it was lost almost in the same latitude, just on the other side of the country, in far north western Australia. But unlike the Yongala, this wreck remains undiscovered, and the exact chain of events that led its loss we still do not know. What we do know is that on the 20th of March 1912, the Koombana steamed into a cyclone and was never seen again with the loss of all on board. After the ship was lost, rumors have circulated around that there could have been a mysterious pearl on board, the roseate pearl. The roseate pearl is apparently cursed because, according to legend, anyone who comes into possession of it meets an untimely and very violent end. This story first came up in a book called 40 Fathoms Deep, which is a lively account of the pearling industry in far north Australia. However, that book also blends fact and fiction. The story goes is that one of the passengers who had the roseate pearl on board the Koombana was Abraham Davis. Now, Annie Boyd has provided the most complete account of the life of the Koombana and the circumstances around its loss. And in this massive study, there's even much more available online, including numerous primary sources that couldn't be included in this book. And you can check out my review of this I did a while back. But in her research, what is interesting is that she can definitively prove that there was a passenger on board. His name was Abraham Davis, and he was a pearl dealer. Whether he did have the roseate pearl with him on board the Koombana, we don't know. Ultimately, we need to find the wreck of the ship, find the safe, and see if there's pearls still inside it for us to determine this. A more scientific explanation of the loss of the Koombana is that it was just simply overwhelmed by the waves and the storm. And there had been rumors and accounts that the ship's metacentric height wasn't as high as it could have been, so the ship was quite tender, and that tenderness may have exacerbated its rolling tendencies. Our third ship is a tad more famous because it has more of an international exposure, and we'll be seeing that in our next episode, so stand by.